All right, folks. Thank you very much for joining us here today on this for this webinar, this media briefing that we're having. This is the Latino Corporate Directors Association and Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity will be launching the first of its kind California Boardroom Equity Scorecard and Tracker. This is an interactive resource that's going to support Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity, which is a coalition of national Latino organizations targeting California companies that have no Latino representation. My name is Roger Salazar. I'll be moderating this presentation. We are joined today by the Latino Corporate Directors Association Board Chair and former SEC Commissioner Roel Campos. We also are joined by Latino Corporate Directors Association CEO and President Esther Aguilera. We are going to have comments from Senator Maria Delena Durazo of California, Deborah Sandler, who's an LCDA member and former president of Mars Chocolate North America, and a board member of Dollar General, Archer Daniels Midland and Gannett Company. We will also have Grace Colon, who's an LCDA member and president and CEO of the biotech company Encarta Therapeutics and a board member of CareDx and Protorix Bio, as well as remarks from Cindy Benavidez, who's the national CEO of the League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC. And we'll close the presentation with an overview of the tracker by Ozzy Meza, who is LCDA's Director of Research. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and first of all, let the media know that this is a presentation to you. If you have any questions about this, we are happy to answer them post briefing via the phone numbers that were on the media advisory and press release that you received. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and welcome Roel Campos to go ahead and begin the presentation. Mr. Campos.
Thank you very much, Roger, and welcome everyone. Thank you for your interest. So as Roger has said, today we're launching a new and exciting and very necessary tool to accomplish the Latino Corporate Directors Association, that's LCDA's mission in California. As Roger mentioned, it's called the California Boardroom Equity Scorecard and Tracker. As you well know, Latinos or Latinx community have often been referred to as the forgotten minority, even though US Latinos are the largest minority in the country, numbering about 60 million, consisting of about 40% of the population in two of the largest states, California and Texas. And collectively, Latinos in the US spend over $2 trillion, creating millions of jobs and contributing significantly to our country's GDP. The LCDA's mission is to assure that the Latino and Latinx community is not forgotten by corporate America. Latinos in America are highly qualified for boards of all industries. There is a huge pipeline, and LCDA is ready to assist companies in locating Latinos for board vacancies. LCDA also expects that institutional investors and proxy advisors like ISS will join us and assist in promoting diversity on public company boards, diversity that includes Latinos. After all, diversity that includes Latinos will contribute significantly to the bottom line and provide huge value to investors. As to the new tracker, we all know that nothing is counted until it is measured, and we at LCDA have spent the better part of this year counting. And the numbers in California are not good. In March, we sounded the alarm with LCDA's analysis of women appointed to California boards as a result of SB 826. And we reported that Latinas were the least represented in the boardroom at only 3.3%. In July, LCDA released research on the composition of 662 California public companies, finding that 35% had no ethnic or racial diversity, and only 13%, 1-3, had Latinos on their boards. Since 40% of the population of California is Latinos, but 87% of California public company boards headquartered in the state did not have a Latino or a Latina on their board of directors. This is a problem. The question has to be asked, why not, when there's so many qualified Latinos and Latinas in the community? We partnered with national Latino organizations to form the Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity Initiative for the purpose of holding companies accountable. We want California public companies to know that a truly diverse board of directors must be inclusive of Latinos. California is home to over 15 million Latinos, including 800,000 Latino business owners with purchasing power in California of 320 billion annually. California corporations would be very wise to not take Latinos for granted. A pillar of good corporate governance has been the diversification of company boards. According to a recent McKinsey study, there is a strong business case for gender, ethnic, and racial diversity in corporate leadership. Diverse leaders provide an advantage to companies navigating the rapidly changing business landscape. Diversity in the boardroom that is inclusive of US Latinos contributes to improved decision-making, increases employee engagement, and enhances the corporate bottom line, as I said earlier. In a country in which nearly 25% of the GDP growth is driven by Latinos, again, 25% of the GDP growth driven by Latinos, no company can be effectively governed without Latino voices on their board, especially not in California. Supply is not the issue. Despite a strong qualified pool of director candidates, Latinos have long been systematically excluded and bypassed. LCDA's membership is made up of experienced Latino and Latina board directors, and our mission is to increase the number of Latino board directors across America. This morning, LCDA and our Latino Voices partners will brief you on tools that will educate and inform stakeholders and stockholders about the composition of California public company boards. Again, we're going to count, we're going to measure, and we're going to publicize. I will now turn it over to LCDA's CEO, Esther Aguilera, to introduce our new, again, California Boardroom Equity Scorecard and Tracker. Esther?
Thank you, Chairman Roel Campos, and thank you, California Senator Maria Elena Durazo, and our distinguished speakers for joining us today on this announcement. As Roel outlined, he talked about SB 826 and where we landed in terms of Latinas on California company boards. In July, Assemblymember Holden introduced SB 979, which requires companies to have underrepresented groups on their boards that is inclusive of race, ethnicity, LGBTQ. In response to the staggering low number of Latinos on boards nationwide, but in particular California, and with the passage of this legislation, which is now was signed into law, the Latino Corporate Directors Association, in partnership with the national organizations, as the chairman announced, we launched Latino Voices for Board Equity, and we have a growing list of organizations behind this initiative. They include the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Unidos US, the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund, MALDEF, the National Hispanic Media Coalition, the Association of Latino Professionals for America, ALFA, and the League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC, represented today by its national CEO, Cindy Benavidez. So the Latino Voices Initiative is a community-wide effort to call attention to the fact that Latinos need to have a seat at the table. This initiative has 3 objectives. One is to triple the representation of Latinos on public company boards by 2023. And I know we have some slides that will showcase some of our data here. That's objective 1. The second objective is to act by writing letters and engaging with companies that lack Latino directors. This effort has already started, and we'll be starting with targeting companies in California, and it will move nationwide. Objective number 3, is to track the progress of board placements with the publication of a quarterly scorecard and the board tracker. And today I will share with you the results of the scorecard and what our findings look like. Later in the presentation, you'll hear from our colleague, Ozzy Mesa, who will demonstrate the board tracker. In terms of the scorecard, it is a comprehensive analysis of race and ethnic representation on corporate boards headquartered in California. But the report is going to track new appointments to California-based company boards. The analysis, again, will be presented every quarter and tracked over time. Now, the data was compiled by the Latino Corporate Directors Association and sourced from Equilar's Board Edge database. I often get questions from the press in terms of, how we've collected the data. Clearly, our aim would be to have companies self-disclose, but we don't have that today. So in fact, earlier this year, Equilar led an effort with the Latino Corporate Directors Association, Asian, Black, LGBTQ, to capture this information. So now we have some of the data and we're compiling it for you. And we're also working with ISS, the Institutional Shareholder Services, who's also, we're sharing data with them and vice versa. They wrote letters to companies to ask them to disclose. So we are in a new phase where in the past, shareholders, investors, and companies and the public did not have access to some of this data. In terms of our findings, and the makeup of the companies that were resourced, this scorecard surveyed and looked at the boards of 674 public companies headquartered in California. That totals a number of 5,447 board seats. On a macro level, we found that Latinos hold only 2.1% of those seats, again, among California-based company boards. We also found that nearly 37% of California boards still fail to include any ethnic or racial diversity. And overall, 86% of companies based in California do not have any Latino representation. Moving on to the next slide. If you look at the numbers, as Roel mentioned, Latinos are the largest demographic in California. We represent 40% of the state, followed by the white Caucasian population with 36.5%. Yet, among the board seats, we hold 2.1% of those seats, compared to 84% of white Caucasians in California, or of the companies in California. And you see the rest of the demographics here. These certainly are alarmingly low numbers. On the next slide, we also, as I mentioned, took a look at who's being appointed to California company boards. And we started tracking in July. So from July 1 to October 31, we looked at the composition of those appointees. Overall, 71% of those appointed to California boards were white, Caucasian, and only 5 of those appointments, or 2%, were Latinos. 41%, or 17, were Black African Americans. 9%, or 20 individuals, were Asian, and then you had others. So the reason why we're doing this tracker is because we don't want to respond at the end of the year, or we're going to be doing this quarterly, to find out that the numbers were very low. We're doing this on a quarterly basis to measure and call attention to this discrepancy and this disparity. Among women, the breakdown of those appointed to California company boards, again, between July 1 and October 31st, 51% were men and 49% were women. Of the women, if you do a breakdown of the women who were appointed, 80% were white, and 80 of those appointed were white, and only 2% were Latinas. I would just underscore, a lot of the statistics show that Latinas are entrepreneurs, and as the chairman mentioned, there is a large qualified pool. I turn it back to Roger.
Thank you. Just some shocking numbers there, Esther. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to introduce Senator Maria Elena Durazo. She is in the California State Senate, District 24. She's also the chair of the California Latino Legislative Caucus. Senator Durazo has a long history of fighting for equal rights and giving voices to those who don't have voices. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Senator Durazo.
Okay, now we got on. Thank you. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Mr. Campos, Ms. Aguilera, and all of the other distinguished leaders here today. I'm proud to represent many diverse neighborhoods in the city of LA and East LA, and also proud to represent the California Latino Legislative Caucus. In our incoming 2021 session, our Latino caucus will include 29 legislators and 5 constitutional officers. Representation matters. There's a new record for Latinas at 17, a new record for Latina senators at 7. Representation matters. Those legislators represent districts that are not overwhelmingly Latino. They represent districts in the north, in the rural areas, on the coast, in Southern California, in Orange County, and of course, our inland and border areas. We are in a very good position to stand up and speak out for our communities. Representation matters. So let me applaud you, Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity and the Latino Corporate Directors Association, for providing us all with this new tool to identify and track Latino and Latina representation on corporate boards. A critical component of the Latino caucus's legislative caucus mission is to increase representation in all levels of decision-making. We are making progress, but much slower than we had hoped. Though our caucus has grown to a record 34 members, we still lack representation in the highest levels of government. That is why we are speaking out so loud to get a Latina or Latino appointed to the US Senate and for multiple cabinet level appointments in the Biden administration. We have a highly talented and a growing field of public servants to fill any leadership role in our state, both public and private sector. We brag about how California embraces diversity, yet your numbers show we are at best given a socially distant hug. Our state's and our nation's financial well-being is now dependent. It's dependent on the growth generated by Latino workers, entrepreneurs, and business owners. Remember that, as Dr. David Hayes Bautista reminded us yesterday, the economy needs us, so it's in everyone's interest to invest in us. I look forward to those company boards recruiting Latinos that watch out for our communities. When we get more Latinos on corporate boards, we expect we will get treated better as consumers, as workers, as vendors. It's an embarrassment that only 2.1% of all seats on public company boards headquartered in California are filled by Latinos or Latinas, and even less by Latina women. It is, however, heartening. You're the light at the end of the tunnel to see the great work being done to shine a light on those companies that are intent on perpetuating the old boys network and outdated practices. I thank you, Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity, for developing the scorecard and the tracker. This is going to allow us to engage in California with California companies that are tracking the representation, and also hold up the companies that are acting with representation and responsibly. Thank you again for your new project. Our caucus looks forward to working with you. We need you to succeed on behalf of our entire Latino community and all of Californians. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Very, very appreciative of those remarks. I'm now going to turn it over to Deborah Sandler, who is a Latino Corporate Directors Association member and the former president of Mars Chocolate North America and a board member of Dollar General, Archer Daniels Midland, and Gannett Company. Deborah, would you go ahead and unmute your mic and go ahead and comment?
Thank you, Roger. And thanks to all of you. I'm so proud to be on this panel today and be a part of this tremendous announcement. I am a proud Latina, a Venezolana, who's also lived in Trinidad and Tobago and in the United States, obviously. I have a 35 plus career at Johnson & Johnson, PepsiCo, and Mars Incorporated. And when I walk into the boardroom of Archer Daniels Midland or Dollar General or Gannett, I bring all of that with me. I bring my cultural and corporate experiences to the table. I encourage companies to not run away, but to embrace this opportunity to bring good corporate governance, which requires diverse perspectives around the boardroom. We've moved past the days where we thought that, quite frankly, 6 or 7 white male CEOs or CFOs around the table is good corporate governance. Most companies recognize that you need at least a diversity of experiences. Some have embraced that you need gender. And now we're asking you to embrace cultural and ethnic diversity. And it is really a good corporate practice. What I would say as well is that in the last 7 months or so, I've also been consulting with search firms on board searches. And what I can tell you is there is a wealth of opportunity, a wealth of candidates that can sit on your boards who would also be good fit, because I think that's part of the concern, is that somehow these folks won't gel. Well, you're talking about successful people in corporate America who know how to gel, who know how to bring their experiences to the table, and who know how to fit around the room. And so my encouragement is that you embrace the opportunity to add women and Latinos, Latinas, especially. I'm, obviously biased as an Afro-Latina myself, but know that we can bring the experiences that you need. but we also bring a new perspective on your customer base, your client base, your employee base that may not be represented around the room. And it's just good corporate governance to do so. And I say, don't run from this, but embrace it, and know that there are many, many good candidates out there. I come to myself. I'm good. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, Deborah. Again, very appreciative of those comments and remarks. I'll now turn it over to Grace Colon, who is also an LCDA member and president and CEO of the biotech company Nkarta Therapeutics and a board member of CareDx and Proterex Bio. Grace, go ahead and unmute your mic and present your comments.
Great. Thanks very much, Roger. It's a pleasure to be here as a proud member of the Latino Corporate Directors Association. I'm originally from San Juan, Puerto Rico, where my father's family has lived for many generations, and where I grew up and graduated from high school. And then I moved to the mainland to complete undergrad and PhD degrees in chemical engineering at Penn and MIT. I've spent the last 25 years or so of my career as an executive, entrepreneur, management consultant, venture capital partner, and board member across a variety of segments of the biotech industry, including therapeutics, genomics, diagnostics, and industrial biology. I've also started as well as led investments in early stage companies, and have also served in key executive roles at multi-billion-dollar companies in corporate, commercial, and R&D roles. I've also spent many years as a lab researcher, both in the US and in Europe. Currently, I'm CEO of Nkarta Therapeutics, where we're developing a groundbreaking therapy aiming to treat and resolve acute episodes of atrial fibrillation, which we believe will really transform the care of these patients. And I'm also on the boards of two diagnostics and disease management companies, CareDx, a public company based here in California, focused on transplant patients, and Proterex Bio, where I'm executive chair, and we're focused on chronic respiratory care. I'd like to just talk a little bit more about what Deborah was talking about. There's a talented pool of qualified Latino and Latina executives available to serve on boards. And I've met many of them with decades of experience across all industries, whether it be biotech, tech, finance, manufacturing, services, consumer, entertainment, you name it. We bring not only a wealth of experience, but also the unique perspectives that come from being multicultural and multilingual. We're a growing demographic, and we're highly motivated to contribute to the industries and communities in which we serve. I find that LCDA is an incredibly valuable resource to organizations seeking to connect with a diverse set of experienced Latino and Latina leaders. And I encourage all companies, both public and private, in California and beyond, to work with the LCDA to find qualified candidates for your board. And I also encourage all Latino and Latina professionals who are serving or aspire to serve on boards to reach out to the LCDA and get involved. I've certainly been involved for the last less than a year, and have been so impressed with seeing how well organized and motivated and really advocating for these efforts, including with the announcement today. So thank you very much, and I'll hand back to Roger to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you very much, Grace. Our next speaker is Cindy Benavidez. She is the national CEO of LULAC. Cindy, if you could unmute your mic and go ahead and provide your comments, we will proceed.
Roger, mil gracias, and a big thank you to Roel Campos, who serves as the chair, and Esther Aguilera, who serves as the CEO of Latino Corporate Directors Association. My name again is Cindy Benavidez, and I serve as the national CEO of the League of United Latin American Citizens. LULAC is the oldest and largest national Latino civil rights organization in the country. And for 91 years, LULAC has protected and defended our Latino community, starting at times when simply gathering and coming together could be considered conspiracy, and our community could be hanged, lynched, and even killed simply for coming together. You know, if there's anything that we've learned from the last elections that we're still going through, is that the Latino community is a mighty force, and that not only in 2020 are we a force to be reckoned with, but as we look into the future, we know that the Latino community will continue growing. Today in America, Latinos make up 18% of all Americans, or about 60 million. And in just 30 years, Latinos will be over 130 million strong. What that means is that 1 in 3 Americans will be of Latino ancestry. And so as we connect with different corporations, and I will tell you that the reason why we're here today and we form part of Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity with other national Latino organizations is to sound the alarm that the status quo is not acceptable and cannot remain. We know firsthand that if we ourselves do not bring up this issue, unfortunately, action will not be taken. We applaud Governor Newsom and the legislature in California. Thank you to the state senator for all of the work done to make sure that AB 979 passed. And the truth is that when we saw SB 826 pass, which called for gender equity, of the 511 seats that opened up in a state like California, where Latinos make up 38% of the population, only 17 seats went to Latinas. It is unacceptable. And as Esther mentioned, the fact that in California, you have 36.8% of boards that fail to include any ethnic or racial diversity is a problem. We also know that the massive underrepresentation of 2.1% of Latinos being held on these boards is completely unacceptable in 2020. And so we are here to absolutely call attention to the private sector and make sure that we work hand in hand so the Latinos are represented. I will also tell you that as a millennial and the youngest leader leading a legacy organization, we have a saying and a hashtag, nothing about us without us. And the truth is that we are paying attention to the steps that corporations are taking to make sure that not only do they put out a press release or send out a tweet or honor us during Hispanic Heritage Month, but that year-round action is taken to make sure that Latinos are represented at all levels, particularly at the corporate board level. And this is really a call to action to the chairmen of these corporations, to the chairs of the nominations committees, and to the CEOs to take immediate steps to address this issue. I will also tell you that, there's a saying that my father always told me, and that is that if it's not important, you will find an excuse. But we are here to say that we matter, that Latinos being represented at all levels matter, and that in collaboration with the Latino Corporate Directors Association and the Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity, we stand here together to help a lot of the corporations find seasoned and experienced Latinos who can serve. Mil gracias and thank you.
Thank you very much, Cindy. That was fantastic. Again, we appreciate all the efforts and everything that LULAC is doing. I'd now like to turn it over to Ozzy Gramada Mesa. Ozzy is the Latino Corporate Directors Association Director of Research, to give a brief demonstration of the Boardroom Equity Scorecard and Tracker, in this case, the Tracker. Go ahead, Ozzy.
Gracias, Roger, and thank you to everyone who has joined us today and all the leaders in this panel for coming to life and bringing to life the research that we are disclosing today. So what I want to spend some time on is to showcase the tracker as well as the scorecard and where you can access it directly from our website. So I'm going to share my screen. So the tracker is located directly on our website, and it is accessible on the Latino Voices for Boardroom Equity landing page, which is under the Resources tab of the LCDA homepage. Within here, you'll be able to find additional information regarding Latino Voices, who is leading the initiative, as well as our calls to action. Within the landing page, you will also be able to access and do quick searches of the tracker as well as the scorecard. Within here, you'll be able to click on the scorecard and be able to access additional information related to the presentation that Esther shared earlier today. Excuse me. Let me go back one. In addition to that, you'll be able to search the equity tracker by a number of quick search fields that are located right here on the left-hand side. And it's easily searchable by company, sectors, companies that have Latino or do not have a Latino. If you want to search the entire equity tracker, you can click on search and it will take you directly to the tracker. So as Esther mentioned, the data was sourced in partnership with Equilar and collected and verified by LCDA. And the tracker really provides a unique perspective and timely perspective on the state of US Latino and Latina representation in boardrooms of California public companies. And as Esther mentioned, it's a quarterly report, which is very, very unique. We will be monitoring the progress to ensure that we can call out and bring awareness to the progress of ethnic and racial board composition. The tracker will be updated quarterly, and it will be accompanied by a scorecard. And the scorecard will highlight findings and trends in the Latino landscape, but as well, it will compare overall progress of all board appointments by race and ethnicity. So the tracker was designed to easily be searchable using a number of predefined fields. To be on the California Boardroom Equity Tracker, companies must be headquartered in California and publicly traded on major US exchange, the NYSE, NASDAQ, and Amex, as well as companies no longer trading on one of these exchanges due to acquisition, bankruptcy, or other reasons will be removed. The tracker will allow you to search by company name, city, board sector, number of Latinos on board, rating, and with or without Latinos, a quick search. I will focus really on the rating system. The LCDA developed a simple 3-star rating system to feature organizations inclusive of US Latinos and Latinas in the boardroom. By entering either a 1 or a 2 or 3 into the rating system, you'll be able to quickly search for organizations that are aligned to inclusive diversity as it relates to Latinos and Latinas. So as you can see from here, you'll see all these organizations that have a star. That indicates that they have at least one Latino or Latina on the board. If you enter 2, you will get a new list. And as well, you'll see lower, on the lower half here, the rating of 2 stars. So these companies have 2 Latinos or more, or 2 Latinos minimum. And then lastly, you have a number of 3, which is they have at least 3 or more Latino board members. So as you can see here, Arcus Biosciences, Intravision, Herbalife, and Opportune Financial meet that criteria. You can simply clear your form and do a search for the entire list. To be able to search the tracker, you also have the option to search by these headings on the top hand here. You can search by organizations that are on the Fortune 1000 and do ascend and descending order, as well as company name, rating, board size, number of total Latinos, number of Latinos, number of Latinas, sector, city, and state. So once again, each of these are in ascending or descending order. On our main page, you'll be able to reference our methodology, which can be found right here. The methodology provides more details as to the types of companies we track, what types of leaders we track on the system, as well as a definition of race and ethnicities. In addition to that, you will be able to access our quarterly scorecard directly from the Latino Equity or California Boardroom Equity Tracker. We do invite organizations to send us updates. Since organizations are not required to disclose, this is a list that we have curated using a number of resources. We welcome your input. If there is a company that should be listed differently or we missed a director, please let us know. This is a collaborative effort to ensure that we're comprehensive in our approach. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at ogromadamesa@latinodirectors.org, listed at the bottom of the tracker. And once again, thank you to Equilar for all their work to help us source this information to be able to tell the true story of Latino and Latina board composition in California. Roger?
Thank you, Ozzy. And well, now that's a great overview of the tracker. I will now turn it back over to our chair of LCDA, Roel Campos, for closing remarks. Mr. Campos, go ahead and unmute your phone. There you go.
Great. You can and I've unmuted. I want to thank all of the fabulously talented members of the panel and you, Roger, on behalf of I think we're having some technical difficulties. Am I being heard?
You are. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Did you hear my thanks? Sincere thanks to you, Roger, and to the panelists that have appeared today. I just took down some notes very quickly. They were, you know, all of them were so eloquent, and I hope I don't misquote anything. But from Deborah Sandler, she said, "Don't run from it." In other words, don't run from diversity. Embrace it. Very moving. And I think to myself, if directors were considering a new software, you know, a digital presence for your company, and that would be viewed as increasing returns to investors, they wouldn't run from it. They would embrace it, right? Because after all, the whole idea on the part of directors is to maximize, when possible, given full consideration, to improve returns to investors. Well, improving diversity, improving inclusion, having Latinos on boards improves returns to investors. So don't run from it, you know, as Deborah Sandler said. Cindy Benavidez said, Latinos are a mighty force. Yes, indeed. To the tune of over $2 trillion and growing. 50,000 young Latinos reach voting age of 18 every month. People remember Latinos. We're not forgotten when elections come around. You know, Grace talked about a unique experience, multicultural. This is America, you know, and business people accept reality, accept what is. And when you have all this money and you have so many consumers that are Latinos, the experiences that Latinos bring to the board are, again, a necessity. Embrace it, improve the bottom line. This is our message. And, you know, we believe that there is an amazing, both equitable case, the social justice we're talking about these days, but along with that is the improvement to the bottom line, the establishing of higher returns to investors by including Latinos and Latinas in your diversity and your efforts to diversify the board. So we will do what any good business people would do. We will observe, we'll measure, we'll count, and we'll publicize, as I said earlier. And you shouldn't want your company to be in the, what I will call the shame list. Today, very clearly, investors are looking at social impact that the companies they invest are doing. So they're making decisions as to whether they want to be an owner of shares of a company that is making a difference, that is concerned about the environment, that's concerned about diversity and inclusion. So I would think you would want not to be on those low-graded lists, the shame lists. And it's very easy, you know, again, as we said before, don't run away from it, embrace it, embrace diversity, embrace inclusion, embrace Latinos on your board. So I'll end here, Roger, and I thank everyone who attended today. We really appreciate your interest, and we hope you'll join us, you know, and make America and make corporate America a better place, a more inclusive place, a more diverse place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, as I indicated earlier, and as Ozzy indicated, you can find the California Boardroom Equity Scorecard and Tracker on LatinoCorporateDirectors.org under the resource section. And for the media, again, if you have any questions about this and would like to do one-on-one interviews with any of the participants, feel free to contact Monique Navarro at Latino Corporate Directors Association. That's mnavarro@latinocorporatedirectors.org or at 915-790-7788. Again, thank you everybody for participating. Thank you to all of our panelists. And let's just keep moving this fight forward. Thank you very much. And that concludes our briefing for today.